Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Judd Theater. Glad that you are here. Glad you're a part of this pretty historic day. Grateful for you all being here. Grateful for our former students coming back to campus. I want to introduce them and then turn it over to Risa and Gary. They're actually going to be operating the discussion, and they'll talk about how to submit questions. I think maybe there has been some indication of that already with the paper that's been handed out and pens. We're glad that you're here. Let me introduce everybody on stage. I also want to introduce somebody who is among this group but has chosen to sit on the fourth row, right dead center. And that's Big Earl Lewis right here. Earl. Earl's a pretty impressive guy. He was one of our basketball players here and was just an excellent player. He actually was drafted for the NFL as well sometime after he was here at OCC. So Earl, glad you're here. I want you to meet Dr. Ron Wright. Ron is, let's give Ron a round of applause. Okay. I could tell you the secrets about all these guys, but I'm not going to do that so we can get to your questions. I want you to meet Mike Baldwin. Mike Baldwin, he's here in Oklahoma City. Robert Edison, you heard him pray in chapel today. Don Wilson from Connecticut. Don. Pat McCauley Kimbrough is next. And Billy Brooks, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, you know Gary and you know Risa. Let me offer a word of prayer, and then we'll turn the program over to Gary and Risa to begin. God, thank you for this day and the ways you bless us. Father, thank you for friends new and old. I ask your special blessings on everyone in this room and beyond. Help us, Father, live lives that are worthy of the calling that you have for us. Father, I'm grateful for a lot of things, and I take for granted so many blessings that you provide. Help me not do that. Thank you for stories and history and people. And Father, help us all grow closer to you. Above all, God, thank you for your Son, Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and try to get started with our panel discussion this afternoon. Want to not do that. Want to kind of give you a couple of ground rules before we get started, if that's okay. In regards to the questions, you've received cards. We'll ask that if you have questions, fill those cards out and pass them to the outer aisles, and those will be collected, and we will try to honor as many questions as possible. Secondly, I want you to ask the questions you want to ask, try to get the information you want to know, but I want you to also be respectful that these folks have decided to open up their hearts to us after 50 years. And I'm telling you that Reese and I will be protective of them. This is not an easy thing to do if you've spent any amount of time with them. To get to this place took a lot. And so I want you to be mindful of that. If you ask a question or you send a question up and it's not asked, again, I want you to know that we're being protective of them and being protective of their spirit and of their heart because we've got a long way to go today. Okay? So we'll go ahead and get started with today's panel discussion. And I guess I'll start with the man, the myth, the legend, the Billy. Look at Billy's socks. I mean, it's just, it's like, if I could just touch the hem of your garment. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard some stories about you, and we'll get to those later. First question I want to ask, and we can start with Billy, and then anyone who wants to answer that is this. What went through your mind when OC reached out to you and told you that we wanted to speak to you about this event?
You got to be kidding.
And why is that?
After 50 years, the panel, I think the only one I have spoken with in the past 50 years has been Dr. Ron Wright. I haven't spoken to Pat, the Worm, Midge, or Mike. And to ask me about what happened without consulting them after 50 years, everyone has a different story that has got entangled into the truth. You know, I can remember 50 years, what happened to me. Now, everyone else has a different story. This is what really tripped me about what did I do, what did I think. I know what I did, but I know the effect. I don't know the effect that what it had on everyone else. I know it was negative, and everyone turned it into a positive. That is the great thing about this story. Some had to start over from school. Myself, I was 3-4 weeks from graduation when all of a sudden my education was taken from me. It was like my freedom had been taken from me. And I was on scholarship, athletic scholarship, so I didn't have any money to begin with. And to be kicked out of school here in Oklahoma and have to call home to my daddy that I had to come home. See, back in that day, we had real daddies who didn't take no. And my reason was not good enough, so I did not tell him. I stayed around here in Oklahoma City for a couple months playing AAU ball and attempting to get my transcript. You want me to go on? You know, I can go on and on and on.
Let me pause.
Go
you
on
for
to
just,
somebody else.
Yeah, let me. Anybody else? What were your initial thoughts when you got word from us?
I had been working for 50 years to try to make this day happen. From the moment we were thrown out of school until this very day, I've been working for a reconciliation of those who were leaders of the college and us who were alienated and forced to leave for some unknown really reason. But it was a time then of a student unrest on campus. In the week that we got thrown out, the president of Notre Dame had just come out and he said to his students, any student who made a demonstration of any kind, of any sort, that he would throw them out of college immediately and put them out and ban their records and all of this kind of stuff. Today we're here to celebrate the courage that we had to stand up and try to have a voice for ourselves. And here's one thing I want you to know that you haven't heard anybody say yet. The Bible says when the Lord spoke to his people, the devil came also. So I know there are devils in this room who still want to know what we're going to say. And you're going to hear some remarkable stories. I left here, and the people here told me I would never graduate from college. PhD, Cornell University. They told me I would never get any college records. People on campus found the records. And they found them, and then they made sure that the records found me, so I could go forward with my education. And they were certain that said that my interest in the church and what happens in the church will not be furthered. And here I am, a past elder. So I've done everything they said I could not do. And so today, if nobody came but me and Billy, I was coming just to tell those people and the people who are here for those people right now, I made every goal that I set out to make when I was here, in spite of people who said, you'll never do it. So I'm ecstatic, delighted, unbelievably whatever to be here. And so you can ask me anything if you're willing to hear the truth. If you don't want to hear the truth, then you just came for show and tell. Then sit there and don't say anything. But if you want something and you want to hear the truth, send it down here and you'll get it back.
Mrs. Kimbrough? What was your initial impression when we reached out to you about coming back?
I was blown away. Number one, I wasn't going to come. My husband talked me into coming. And I said, why? He said, because you have a story to tell. He said, you need to go. And I'm so grateful for you, President, for doing this. I know it took a lot of work, and thank you.
Well, for me, when I got the letter, I thought it was a solicitation for funds. And I said to myself, how did they get my address? I said, I didn't get any, I was no longer on the mailing list for the newsletters and things of that nature, so I'm saying, how did they get my address? I mean, it wasn't the right address, but it was close enough so that the mailman knew to deliver it to me. And when I saw the envelope, it was sort of a unique envelope. I don't know where Dr. deSteiguer gets those envelopes, but it has like a seal that goes around it. You just couldn't flip your finger and just open it up. It took effort. So curiosity really set in. This must be something important if it's sealed this way. So I opened it and I read it, and it brought back memories. I'm reading it and I'm saying to myself, after 50 years, I'm getting this letter from OCU. And it's telling me of the events that had transpired. And it talked about the Benson Hall sit-in. And I said, I didn't even know it had a name. And asking me and telling me, that they were having this commemoration, this event, and I was invited to come. And, in the letter it said that, progress had been made, maybe not as much as could have been made, but they're moving toward, trying to move in the right direction.
That's right. That's right.
And it seemed like, a period of, of repentance. And I took that letter to heart, and I looked at it and I said, over these 50 years, I wasn't coming back. I didn't even speak to any of the students who were expelled in 50 years. Now, I knew Ron, but I didn't even call him. I didn't even talk to him and all that time. I spoke to his brother sometimes, but I would inquire about how Ron was doing, and he would tell me, but I wouldn't call him because it was just a bad experience. But I told my daughter about the letter, and she's here today, my son, and they said, you got to go. You need to go. My wife says, no, you don't need to go. said that was a bad experience, you just need to forget it, stay home, save that money for my extra furniture for that room. So after talking to my daughter, and she said, Daddy, you need to go. And she says, well, I'll even pay your way to go. So that basically set my mind to say, well, you can go. And then talking to the president, I said, well, I asked him about the accommodations, what would be set up, and he told me all of this stuff that even said, wow, I can really go now without having to worry about dipping into the household funds. But, my mind had been set to just to come and see what was going to be all about. And when I did call Ron and spoke to him, and he said he was coming. And I said, I know Ron and his condition, his physical condition. I said, well, if he's coming, I said, I'm going. So that's why I'm here. And like I said, the letter was just a shock to me. And I said, I'm going to keep this letter forever and stuff. And even when I told the people in church about it, and like I said, I didn't tell a whole lot of people about my college experience, but because of that, and it was Black History Month, I got put on the Black History program. So, but that's what happened as a result of receiving that letter.
I guess my experience is a little bit different. I grew up in the Church of Christ all my life. And so I tended to put things in the frames of my teaching. My father was an elder, my brother's an elder, I've been an elder for 20 years. So even at the time that we were put out, my thought was all things work together for good, and those that love the Lord. So it was a negative event. But in my mind, I'm thinking, what good is going to come out of this? So when I got the letter, the other side of me kicked in, and that's my historian side, because I've been a historian and as far as my career, especially in the area of African American history. And this year is so significant because, the first group of Africans brought to the English colonies came in 1619. So this is a 400-year commemoration. Notice I said commemoration, not celebration, but commemoration of how those early Africans and their ancestors, the perseverance and the achievements that they made within that 400-year time, considering the obstacles that they had to overcome. And I think it was Booker T. Washington that says, don't judge a man by where he is, judge him by the obstacles that he had to overcome to get where he is. And so when I got the letter, I just thought God is still on the throne. The arc of justice being wide, but eventually, justice is going to proceed. And I said, it must be that God at this time has put the right man at the right place in the right time to see that an injustice would be righted. And I think that's why we're here today.
That's right. That's right. Speak.
Mr. Baldwin, do you want to answer that one? No. I'm gonna get you to answer a question in a minute, Mike.
No, don't.
Okay. I'm gonna leave you alone then.
Okay, I was at work one day. Well, I work part-time because my wife likes going to the mall on the weekends. All right. I got to work one day, and the boss man said, well, Donna, he said, Mike, there was 2 white men here looking for you. I said, oh my God, what has my wife done now? Well, I think I met him at the front door. And President John, he introduced me to him, and I can't think of your name.
It's Ken Allen.
Ken, okay. And he told me where he was from. We sat down at the table, we talked. But when he mentioned OCC, memories came back. Memories that I did not want to even come up again. That was one day that really hit me real hard. And when I passed by this university, I try not even looking this way. That was a bad day for me and the rest of us. I agreed to participate. But you don't know how I feel. You can't know. Because 30 days later, after I left this school, I was drafted, went into military service. There's other students that did get kicked out. They had a chance to do something. I didn't. But I have survived this long. Some of my friends that got kicked out, they're not with us today. But thanks to the Lord, I'm here today with you. That's my wife sitting right there with that camera. Cut that out. She's got more pictures of me than anyone. Okay. Margaret, please cut that out. You want me to give you the mic? All right. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Well done. Give Mr. Baldwin a hand. Just a reminder, we really do want to get to your questions and field questions from the audience. So pass those down the aisles. Just kind of raise them up. Kim and Carrie are on each side of the aisle, and we'll take these. We'd really love to get questions from the audience. One more from me, though, first. Could you talk a little bit about what led to what happened the morning of the 6th? So sort of in the hours before, maybe the evening before, how you came to decide to be in Benson Hall that morning.
The day before, we had the infamous sit-in. Several students had a gathering. People who have not been Church of Christ lifers don't call that a party. They call it a gathering of people, which was defined as a party. And it was in the 60s, and there were black students and white students in this gathering, and that made it nearly a disgrace in Oklahoma. And people were not happy that we were gathering. And we were gathering because one of the members of the ball team had a baby. And then one person gathered with another, hey, come over, we're over, whatever. And the next thing you know, you had a gathering, which Church of Christ people called a party, which we called a gathering. People getting together to wish this person well. And so people were dismissed because of that action. And we wanted to make it right. So they came to, a group of students came to me, and they say, Ron, that wasn't my name in those days, it was Sweetwater. And they say, Sweetie Pie, go and talk to your people. You speak their language, they'll listen to you. And I thought, they're right. Our president is an elder of the church, and all I have to do is speak reasonably, and I can get people to hear our side of the story. I wasn't at the party. I wasn't even at the gathering. I was out of town. And they waited till I came back from town and said, can you go speak to the president? It's 28 days before graduation. We don't want to get kicked out of school. And I thought for sure I could do it. I thought for sure I knew the language. And so I went single-handedly at first on the day that we all gathered in the president's office, and I went to speak with him, and the basic message was there would be no rethinking, and if I didn't like it and anybody else didn't like it, we can get in line and we can go too. So I decided at that moment I'm going with my brothers and sisters of the skin and not my brothers and sisters of the faith. And so I stuck with the people that were expelled from school, and our president said that if I didn't get out in 10 minutes also, I'll be gone, and I'll be out. But it was a honest, just gathering. People who are not raised and taught like us come together, and it's a group of people celebrating something. And it was seen as the evil deed, beckoning evil spirits to do something in the evil way. And so those people who gathered were expelled. I came back in town. I was in a school play, and I went to speak with the president. And I'll tell you this, he was not happy. The nerve of us to come and see him face to face and question not his authority or whatever, but question his decision that, wait, let's rethink this. And he said it wasn't going to be rethought, and 10 minutes from the time I talked with him, everybody who was in the hallway outside of his office was going to be arrested and taken to jail.
And I would just add to that, almost all of us would agree that if it had not been white students at that party, it probably wouldn't have been an issue, and primarily white females. Because the policy here was that if there was any interracial dating, both parties would be called in to the dean's office. Both parents, the parents of both individuals would be called. And if the parents okayed it, then the college left it alone. But basically, the message is that the college frowned upon any kind of interracial interaction. So we knew that was the elephant in the room. But this demonstration was not a planned demonstration, unlike what was taking place all over the country, where you had planned demonstrations, where you had people taking over the president's office, throwing files out windows, setting, buildings on fire. There was no profanity in this.
That's right.
There were no threats. Nobody threatened anyone, stay here, don't leave. That was an individual decision that each one. It was not planned. There was no leader. Ryan kind of stands out. But technically, there was no one person who said, let's go over here and let's have this demonstration. So we referred to it as a civil rights demonstration, but it was more a student rights demonstration because it confirmed what we had believed and experienced during our time here, that black students were not a part of the campus community. We were not afforded opportunities on chapel. Rarely did we had talented black students, but rarely were they afforded opportunities to participate in chapel. We were not in any leadership positions as a whole, where we came from places where we were, presidents of this and that, but we didn't get those opportunities. On the weekends, and most of us were from out of state, we were exiled out here. There was no place for us to go unless we had friends in the city. And so a lot of those who were kicked out, and I'm like Ron, I didn't make the party, probably would have if I'd known, but I didn't make it. But they had signed out legally. They had signed out for the weekend. And part of that argument is, how can you punish students who are legally signed out and they're on the free times, they're under the supervision of their parents, and yet you're still going to punish them? And I think they came back with this argument that it was a reflection on the college and all this, but it didn't stand up to the standard or the rules that were in place. So, and this is why we felt it was such an injustice. I'm like Ron. If they had not kicked me out, I would have left anyway, because my cousin, Jim Barris, who could not be with us, we had been in school from kindergarten all the way through Southwestern Christian College. We made a decision to come here together. So we've been together our entire time. And if he was going home, I was going home.
My story is a little different in the sense that I was one of those at the party. But being at the party, I was thinking about it, and I said, what kind of party was it that we actually had? Yeah.
Gathering.
Well,
Gathering.
like I said, but this is the way it was interpreted as a party. You know what I'm saying? What kind of party was it? Did we have dancing and music and all of that kind of stuff? And I was just thinking about it. I said, no, none of that stuff really happened. People were sitting around and stuff like that. And, like I said, it was really a gathering. And I'm sort of, I blend in. I don't know how that can be imagined, but everyone that was expelled for attending the party, my name wasn't mentioned. And I said to myself, gee, I must really be incognito. Or did they ask for the names and the only name that they could give was Worm? So everyone had a nickname, and mine was Worm. So when they probably said, well, who is Worm, and no one really knew maybe what my real name was. So they couldn't do any paperwork and stuff for me. But when I heard about this supposedly demonstration, this sit-in, I was saying, well, I'm not going to get involved. I'm here to get an education and stuff of that nature. I mean, I live in Connecticut. I'm not going to be going back home. I don't want to go back home. That's why I came all the way out here to Oklahoma, because I didn't want to go back home. But I went to the president's office. I had a little, the administration building, because you had to go there to get checks cashed and stuff. So I said, well, I can kill two birds with one stone. I said, I can go see what's going on, and I'll go get my check cashed. But as soon as I went in the door, President Baird said, you have 5 minutes. See, he gave them 10. He gave me 5 minutes to leave this hall or consider yourself no longer a student of this institution. It was at 5 minutes. I'm looking around and I see all the people there who had been expelled. And the reason that they had been expelled was for going to this gathering. And I'm saying, I was at the gathering. but I wasn't expelled. So I don't know whether I just messed up God's providence by saying, well, I'm going to sit here because I support and I was a participant. I wasn't going to take the easy way out and say, well, you know, let them go and I stay. I took a stand that day with my fellow students because I knew that what had happened wasn't really an incident worthy of people being expelled from school. And even when the police came, the particular ones that took us in his cruiser, he says, I can't believe that you people got arrested. As a matter of fact, they didn't even put handcuffs on me. I mean, I sat in the front seat of the police car. And I don't know whether in Oklahoma that's something that usually happens, but, you know, he couldn't believe it. But that day was a day that will forever be in infamy. I mean, you won't forget it because it's one of those days that changed my life forever.
My story is a little different, too. I moved out of the dorms. I was a freshman because I was being sick of being micromanaged. It was like somebody spying on me all the time. I was always in Dean Wood's office because my dresses was too short. I was showing my toes or my shoulders or whatever. So I moved back home and I was commuting. But I did go to the gathering. And also, I think it was a black and white thing that, you know, somebody went back and told. I met with Dean Woods. I wasn't expelled neither. She just told me to go, you know, that was it. And the following day, I was coming on campus, and I'll never forget, my dad said, girl, don't get in no trouble, okay? Stay out of trouble. And I saw a gathering when I got on campus, and I didn't know what was going on. And the next thing I knew, you had about how many police cars? 6 or 7 police cars. I never knew what went down. But it was, you know, it changed my life, you know. But I bounced back. You know, life is a grindstone. Whether it polish you up or polish you down, it depends on what you are made of.
I'd like to get past this party, gathering, or what you call it. This is a Christian environment. Majority of us are that 18 is from a Baptist background. We were taught, I was taught at a young age, it was hard work, family, and church. If you had a problem, you could go to the head of the church with your problem. Now, we are thrown into this situation. My story's a little different because I was an athlete, and I kind of had a little more than the rest because I was on a full scholarship. I was here for athletics and education, not necessarily in that order. That was my plan when I left home, to come here, get an education, not necessarily a Christian education, because Christ was already right here. I didn't need any help with that. I came here for an education, to play basketball, to get to my next part in life, and I must throw this at you. Stand up. My daughter just walked in. Stand up. That's my daughter. I'm going to stand up with you, baby. What this party, sit-in, what you want to call it, it wasn't about that. It was not. It was supposed to have destroyed us. It was supposed to have destroyed our lives. All of us turned it around and did something positive with our life, our families. It took me 25 years to see my daughter, and she was right up in Tulsa. I didn't have a job. 4 weeks from graduated from here, thrown out, scholarship gone. My daughter, I never got to see till she was 25 years old. And we are tight as thick and thin. My wife accepts her like our daughter. My 2 sons, that's my daughter. But what Oklahoma Christian did for me, it opened my eyes really to what's really going on. We're not here for I'm not here for no sit-in or no partying or none of that. I'm here to tell the truth, what happened to me, how you changed my life, and what I had to do with the grace of God to turn my life around, get my daughter, my lovely wife, to get on the straight and narrow, get back to what I wanted to do. Like I said, I was 3 weeks from graduation. I go back home. I'm going to go back to school, get my degree. I called the school. They would not release my transcript. Said I owed $120 for a burn in the carpet. I've never smoked and don't smoke yet. I paid it. Got back in school, got my bachelor's, just like Ron. Went and got my master's, went and got my doctorate. And I preach to kids every day. You have got to be sure of what you're asking for. You got to know which way you want to go, because the devil is working this way, the Lord is working over here, the devil working over here too, and the Lord's working over here. You can get mixed up, and I think a lot of us got mixed up with this Church of Christ, especially me. I thought the church was the way to go. You know, what the devil do bad, God does good. And when I got the call from John to come back, I said, I have a story. I have a real story. I hope I get some questions where this truth can come on out of me, where I can be released from 50 years. I thought I had it suppressed. But seeing all of my colleagues here, hey, it's some still hatred, the way we were done. Not to be able to speak to the preacher, the head of the church, for doing us wrong. We didn't call it a sit-in or nothing. I don't even remember being here. I remember coming on campus the next morning, police everywhere asked me my name. I said, Billy Brooks. They said, get out of the car. Click. Took me to jail. What is the charge? They didn't tell me. I was locked up. One person, not Oklahoma Christian College, came to my rescue. I'm talking Billy Brooks now. Not one. After I gave my heart and soul to this university. Senator Phil Watson, bless his soul, came down to that Oklahoma City jail, said, let Billy Brooks out. I got out. Got a ride out here to campus. They gave me about an hour, get your stuff out of the dorm, and hit the road. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. We didn't have credit cards then, especially us blacks. We didn't know what a credit card was. Cell phone. I couldn't call home to my daddy because it's 5 of us kids, 4 of us was already in college. They asked for some money to come home. I had to stay here in Oklahoma City. Got a job out Lake Overholster to get some money, make some money, to get home. Then I had to tell my story to my daddy. He said, well, that's just one setback, and you're a champion, so that's the mark of a champion, is to come back. I said, what, Dad? He said, you could go back and still do good. And that's when I paid OCC their $120, got my transcript, and went to a university in Ohio and got back into education. And that's what I did. But every application, everywhere I went across this country, across this world, because I've been everywhere, on the strength of that basketball, my natural talent, and my wife to push me also, I've been to Brazil, Argentina. I was in the 72 Olympics in Munich when it came in and shot up. I was on that squad. I was 27 years old. I always put Oklahoma Christian College, and I still do. And what has Oklahoma Christian College done for me? No one stood for me when I went to jail. No one. So I'm not bitter. It just made me a stronger person because I got my family together and they behind me. And really, that is all that I needed was my family to push me to success. And I can pass it on to my kids and my grandkids. They're going to be stumbling blocks, whether it's black or white. They're going to be there. But you have to continue to struggle, fight the power. And I've done that and still doing it. Got a birthday coming up when? Sunday. I'll be 74.
Are we having a gathering?
Yes, we. No. Yes. No.
I just want to know if I was invited, you know. I like cake.
We will have a party.
Party. Invite
And
me.
There's no gathering. It's a party. And it's a party. And I know how to party.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, it'll be clean, though.
It's okay. It's your party.
All right, it's a party. So, in closing, I just want you to know, I want you to feel me, how I kind of felt when those cuffs went around my wrist and I was arrested for no reason. There's never been no reason given to me why I was arrested. Sit-in, I don't even remember being there. I don't remember. When I rode up that morning, they handcuffed me, took me to jail. But anything that went down on this campus, Billy Brooks had to have something to do with it. I understand that. You know, 'cause I worked it that way to be the best at everything. I worked to be the best at everything. Best husband, best father, best basketball player, best partier, all that. But I'm gonna get this through, then I'm gonna be finished with you all. My wife would tell you right now, when I lose a basketball game, which we had lost 4 or 5 days earlier, on an opportunity to go back to Kansas City, where I was hoping to get an NBA shot. We lost. I'm not in a partying mood after a loss. My wife would tell you, I just quit coaching 5 years ago. If she did not come to the game, she always wanted me to call. How did we do? We lost. Okay, you gonna stop, get a beer? No, I'm coming home. Your dinner's on the stove. My steak is wrapped up on the stove. My baked potato, half hot, half cold. My salad in the refrigerator. And she, guess what she has on? What's them big robes y'all wear, ladies? The big terror
Watch out now.
big robes?
Watch out now, Billy. We got kids in here, Billy.
No, well, they need to grow up because they
I
need
hear
to
you.
know how this goes.
I hear you. I just didn't
They
know where you were
need to
going.
know. Y'all, hey,
Where you going?
they need to know. Just listen. If we won, she want to know. We won. So I would come home. She said, your dinner's ready. I come home. The steak is on the grill. I can smell it in the driveway. My baked potato is in the oven.
Yeah.
And she's making me a fresh salad. Should I stop there?
That's a good place.
That's a good salad.
That's a good place.
That's a good
I
salad.
don't know where this is. That's a.
You really don't want to know the ending?
You can talk to me about it. I don't know if everybody. Go ahead.
And she has on a negligee.
All right, that's a good place right there to end it. That's a great place, Billy. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Brooks of Dayton, Ohio. Yes.
Gary, do
You
you
go.
have a question to right this ship?
Yeah, I do. I do. My heart was beating so fast. Okay, we're coming. I think close to trying to land this ship here, so our guests can have some rest before our time together tonight. But we'll take a look at a couple of these questions that we got from the audience. several of you have made reference to the intersection between this campus and the church. The intersection between what OC professed to be and what you really felt it was. And this question pretty much is asking, because you thought you were on a campus with Christians at a Christian college, as a result of the things that have happened to you, how has it shaped your faith? Has it changed your faith? Has it caused you to wrestle with God any? But do you think your faith has shifted in any way as a result of what happened 50 years ago today?
Well, for me, being a member of the Church of Christ, parents were members of the Church of Christ, you know, you learn that as a Christian, you're going to be tried, you're going to be tested. There's going to be persecution, there's going to be tribulation. You're going to go through stuff. And the reason why you go through that stuff is to make you stronger. So the things that went on were, of course, things that I didn't expect. And, but I learned from those to turn those negatives into positives. I didn't let it get me down. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I was a stable individual. I didn't have any outward signs of anger or things of that nature. And my daughter, who is here also, came up from Texas to be here in support of me. Like I said, I live in Connecticut, so I do have an extension that's close by. But I didn't talk about OCU, OCC to her as she was growing up. I let her make her own college choices. Any get-togethers that we had, you know, regarding college, basically we would go yearly to a homecoming event that they had at Northeastern Christian Junior College. And that school was in Villanova, Pennsylvania, just down the street from Villanova University. And we would go there. It was like family. We could reminisce on the life that we had there. And those were the best 2 years of my life. I enjoyed the camaraderie and the faculty and all of the students. We got along. Never had any incidents there. But taking the trip, coming to Oklahoma, and you know, I had transferred from Northeastern and came here, so I was basically in my junior year, and you could feel the difference. The suite that I was in, even the roommates that I had 2 white guys as roommates. They were from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and that's about all that I knew from them. We didn't really talk that much. They didn't say, well, you're a million miles away from home, come with us home for the weekend and things of that nature. So, you know, we basically, those of us who were students from afar, you know, we learned to bond together. And also with the support of the church in Oklahoma City, we would go down there on Sundays. They would take us out to dinner and, you know, things of that nature. So I always trusted in the church, trusted in the Lord. And I didn't let this particular incident bother me or affect me or change me. I never left the church. I supported the church. The church has supported me. And it hasn't changed my life one iota, but I just put the incident of Oklahoma Christian in the recesses of my mind. I just didn't let it affect the way that I was going to move forward.
And I'll address that as well, being a member of the church. And my experience is very similar to Don, because I had attended Southwestern Christian College for 2 years. So again, the only historically African-American Church of Christ in the United States. So I came from a very nurturing environment. To this day, I go down on Thursdays and mentor students. So even though I graduated from there in 1966, you know, at one point I promised to go back and work, and so I went back and I worked for 2 years as director of social studies as a way to give back. Dr. Jack Evans was my dean the first year I was there. Later, he became the president of the college. If he sees me today, he refers to me as one of his sons. So I had a strong conviction, but it made it very difficult when I got here to promote the church because of the way the non-Church of Christ students were, what they were seeing. And you know, it's like that poem that says, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one. And they were hearing sermons, but they were not seeing sermons. So it didn't impact my faith in that sense, but it made it very difficult to try to convert someone to the Church of Christ based on the way they were being treated by, you know, Church of Christ members who, you know, worked on this campus and even were students on this campus. So that was the impact as far as I saw.
I think it's been covered. I don't have anything to add.
Do we have time for one more question, Gary? I have about 3 here that are very, very similar, and so I'm going to kind of sum these up. A couple of people from the audience, by the way, just want to express how sorry that they are, and want this group to know that they personally are seeking to do better. But these 3 questions basically are, okay, here we sit today as college students. Perhaps conflicts aren't as noticeable or present on campus or in the world, at least not in the same kind of way. What can we do today as college students to do better, to be better? What sort of advice do you have for us?
I guess because I'm an educator, I like to deal with that. And the first thing you can do is reject the myth of race. Race is a social construct. It's not biological. It's a way that we identify people. There's one race, there's a human race. And once we get beyond that and we see ourselves like flowers of a field that come in different colors, different sizes, different shapes, but they're still flowers. The same is true of human beings. Society tells us that the last 2 institutions to change are public schools and churches. And we see whenever there's a conflict, those are the last 2 institutions to change. But what I would say to you young students as an educator, what my experience did, it made me a better educator. I taught for 44 years in Dallas public schools. I was named Dallas Teacher of the Year out of 8,000 teachers, and Region 10 Teacher of the Year, and that's probably 15,000 teachers. And it was part of it was because I never wanted a student to experience what I experienced. So even though I was teaching white students, Hispanic students, I was always inclusive. I affirmed every one of my students. And I understood that as a teacher, I determined whether students were humanized or dehumanized in my classroom. So I set the stage. So I would encourage you young people, and I hope there's some future teachers in here, but whatever career you go into, recognize people as who they are. And who they are, they're brothers and sisters to you.
One of the things you have to watch out for today is another opportunity for division. The politics of today are dividing us once again. People are taking sides, not because really of beliefs or principles, because there are no principles. We're taking sides once again because of ethnic origin. Where do you come from? This country is once again for white Americans. It was never that way. Indians were here first. So the country now, and you look at it, you have so much disharmony. And it's a lot like the 60s. Can history be repeating itself today? I remember when I first came here in one of the basketball games. And, we did the Pledge of Allegiance. But then we had the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And I said to myself, what is this? It's a different culture in the South where the memory of the Civil War is still being posted in people's minds. People are still taking sides with something that happened in the past. They can't let it go. And it's not just a pride thing. It's something that divides us as a people. As mentioned, God just made one race, the human race. And if we all think of ourselves as being from Adam and Eve, then we're all one people. People just grew up in different locales, and that's why their skin is white. Or people in Africa, because their skin is black. But it's because of their locale. Some people have blue eyes, some people have brown eyes, but it's because of genetics. But we're all, as mentioned, Christians, God's people, and the Bible tells us how we're supposed to live and love each other. And when you can't love each other because of your skin color, that lets you know that there's something wrong. Christ isn't in you. It has to show. It has to be a positive. It can't be a negative. So the next time you see someone, the person next to you, your students, your fellow students, and you can't sit down and talk to them, you feel that they're below you or you're above them, you have to reflect. Is this really the way Christ would want me to be? See, this is a Christian institution. It's not a public school. You came here because the school is supposed to have certain values. Values that are different than any other place. So there should be a love for each other, compassion for each other, understanding each other. We all don't come from the same home environment. And as Ron said, coming here, if he didn't have his athletic scholarship, where would he have been? So he came here because this was an opportunity for him. And it might have been an opportunity for us to even embrace each other. Because Billy never became a member of the church. Because he couldn't see the difference. He saw that there was a racial divide. So the things that we do have an impact on the people around us. And that's something that we have to understand, and it's something that as students we can correct, and we don't have to allow it to go on.
Anyone else, any last advice for these college students today and the rest of us who are here still trying to do better and learn?
Well, I have 3 girls, and they all graduated from Spelman College. It's an all-black female college in Atlanta, Georgia. I didn't want what happened to me to happen to them. But you know, if you look at racism is just like rain. If it's not falling, it's gathering somewhere. And we're all of a child of God. You know, just because we speak different, look different, eat different, we all a child of God.
How many of you all have seen this edition from Oklahoma OCU? I've studied this. As we know, it's Dave and Linda Smith on the front of it, our teammate, his wife. This edition has 32 pages. How many blacks in this book? 6 black students is in this book. No representation. Check yourself. Let me talk to the black students. Get yourselves together. Get you a committee. Demand some things that you have to have. There's nothing in here about you all. I've read it from cover to cover and back to back. 6 black students are in this magazine, published, called The Vision, Oklahoma Christian University. My son came here and was turned away when they found out he was my son. One of the best ball players that you had at the time came here. He was turned away by the other administration because when they found out he was my son, he couldn't play here. That was 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And now here it is again. It's still this way. I could not show this magazine to my students back home about going to OCU. Hey, try this, it's a great university, this and that. Well, where's the black folks, Coach? Not even in the edition. 6 of your students, or past students, is in this magazine. Oklahoma Christian. So my message to you students, black and white, to make a better environment, y'all have got to communicate. You have got to communicate to make this campus better, because there's an uprising coming. There's an uprising coming if you don't get together. Now, this would be something back in my day we look past. Me and Earl, this group up here, we make no difference. We always making grades. We on the trail to graduating and moving on with our lives. But you all are in the mix right now that, because there's more blacks, more dating, more hand holding, but there's an uprising coming. So my message is, get to know your fellow students real well. Because when it happened this time, it won't be 18, it's 200, 300, maybe. So I see a scattered number of blacks in here. So this couldn't be a party.
It's a gathering.
It's a gathering, yes. And it's mild. That's about all. Turn over to you.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Year to age.
Okay. The real issue in America is that you should be a Christian first and an American second. And if you do that, we'll have a better United States, we'll have a better union, a better relationship. And don't be afraid to speak truth. When you see something that's wrong, to speak on it. Unfortunately, even when I was going to school here, my white friends were deathly afraid to speak the truth. They wanted to be liked and accepted. And when you are white in a white environment, you can do that. We didn't have that choice. Something happened to us, and we had to speak up and speak out and say, that's not right. So I would encourage you to speak with grace and dignity, to speak the truth and know that your word can make a difference. Just one little person can make a difference. There were, at this moment, 21 of us, or whatever it was. But what you don't know is, when we started, there were hundreds. And we spoke to people and said, your parents can't afford for you to speak the truth. Step out of this line. And we called that number down to the truly dedicated, who would stand for the truth and who are brave enough to stand for the truth. Don't be, as they say, scared. Don't be scared to speak truth and say that is wrong and it shouldn't be done on this campus or wherever you are. And when you speak truth, the chances are very high that you'll be by yourself. Nobody may stand with you. But when those chances come to speak it, to speak truth, stand up and be counted.
Would you like the last word, Mr. Edison?
Well, Ron stole my thunder because we're on the same page. And what I advocate in public school, I would advocate to faculty members here, that you must be an advocate for equity on this campus. And the same thing that Ron is saying, that when you see things that you know are not just, are not right, that are injustices, things that can be better, then as an advocate for equity, you're obligated to speak up and to speak out.
That's right.
I think if there was more faculty members here that we could have gone to, who we know advocated on our behalf, the whole situation probably would have ended up differently. Yeah. And again, to you young people, what I would say to you is understand that at some point in your life, you're going to have to make a choice as to whether you're going to engage in the struggle. Because there are a lot of struggles going on in our society today. And you have to decide whether you're going to stand on the sidelines or whether you're going to engage in the struggle. Right. And Frederick Douglass said it best when he said, where there's no struggle, there's no progress. Men who want to end slavery without agitation want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of the seas. Struggle may be moral, it may be physical, but there must be a struggle. So one thing that is true, you can struggle and not make progress, but you cannot progress without struggle.
I think that's the perfect place to end it. We want to thank you all for sharing with us this afternoon. Want to thank you again for your presence, being here. We thank you for making time to revisit something that may not be one of the most pleasant experiences in your life. But as I'll say to you as an alum, as a black man on this campus who works here, attempting to advocate, your presence here means more to me than you'll ever know as I go about my job daily. Can I pray for you? And we'll pray together. And then again, we want to see everybody tonight at 7 o'clock in Ball Auditorium. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you for this day. Thank you for just waking us up. We're thankful for the presence of these that are among us, those who sacrificed for us. We're thankful for those who are no longer with us, who sacrificed as well. May we always remember them as we remember the bravery that took place 50 years ago. We ask, Lord, that you would continue to be with us in our time together today. May not this day be in vain. May we learn things. May we wrestle with difficult conversations. May we speak up, and may we stand up, even if it means we must do it and be counted alone. We just ask that you would give our guests longevity of life, give them the courage to continue to keep fighting and to keep standing up for what is right. Be with those among us who may be faced with adversity or faced with difficulties and have always chosen to keep silent and to keep quiet. Cause them to speak. Cause them to be called to action. Cause them to be the people that you would have us all be. As always, Lord, we simply ask that you help us to be better people tomorrow than we try to be today. So I pray in Christ's name we pray. Amen.